Hello and welcome to Naptime Nuggets number 47. I love this topic because I remember struggling trying to get my children to go to sleep. And I've heard from many childcare providers and other early childhood professionals that in group settings, it's even harder. So I'm going to think about both at home and in group settings, how we can tackle this challenge, this sleep challenge. So welcome to Naptime Nuggets number 48. Please sleep. I just remember begging my daughters, please, please just sleep. I was so tired. I was so exhausted. I needed a break. And they just kept fighting me. So thankfully, I was going to a class by Mary Sheedy Kurcinka. I was doing my student teaching and I got to work with her and Marietta Rice as she was writing the book Sleepless in America. We worked for 1.5 hour parent discussions with a group of 8 parents, and it was absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to share our deepest insight, and I do highly recommend her book also. So you have a child that won't sleep. They won't lay down. They won't take a nap, or maybe they keep waking up at night. Oh, if they could just sleep. Well, let me ask you, can you? Do you every night when you go to sleep just lay down in bed and drift off into a slumber? Or do you sometimes fall asleep really easily and sometimes it's more difficult for you? Or if you've done too much in a day, you just really have difficulty sleeping. So it's very normal to have that challenge for all of us. Everybody's different. So I fall asleep very easily. My husband doesn't fall asleep so easily. But there's been a couple times in my life I couldn't fall asleep almost the whole night. So how can we help kids if we can't even help ourselves? Well, there are some strategies and ideas here I'm super excited to share with you that actually will help kids. So it's going to be 3 sessions because there's a lot with this one. This one, what we're really looking at is how can you set up the environment? How can you set up to make sure that kids are getting enough sleep? Because if they don't get enough sleep, they get in a sleep deficit. They start having misbehaviors. They might even get into accidents, get hurt, have trouble focusing. They don't do well at school. They don't perform as well in their activities and other things they're doing. And they're more likely to get in power struggles with you. So if you want to take care of all these problems, number 1, get them some sleep. How do you behave when you haven't had sleep? I know I'm crabby, I'm short-tempered, I'm more likely to say no and lock in, get in power struggles. I don't even focus as well. So here we go, the challenge. How do we overcome it? Hi, everybody. Raylene Osberg here from Thriving Together, where we are working together to make sure to bring you guys tips and tools you can apply today to help ease through life with young children, help set them up for success and experience more joy along the way. Super glad you're here. Let's jump right in. So what we're doing today is we're looking at what are the culprits that get in the way. So I remember my child, I really have difficulty having her go to sleep. There was lots of battles from a baby trying to fall asleep into toddlerhood. And as she got older, we had a lot of difficulty with sleep. So it's not always easy, but when I started learning about what's going on behind it and what I controlled, what I could do about it, then life started to change. So I'm going to give you that today. And then next week, we're going to look at, okay, so the actual falling asleep, what are some things you can do to help them? And then the third one is, what if you do all this and they still won't go to sleep when those big nighttime battles happen? So first, we're going to set the stage so that your child or the children you care for actually will be able to fall asleep in the first place. So let's look at some of the things that get in the way. Okay, so what we're going to do, there's some pieces here. Number 1, I'm going to ask you over the next week to track children's behavior. Okay, so I am putting on my blog, it'll be up after this. It'll take me about 5 minutes to get everything posted. I'm going to put a sleep log. What do you put on the sleep log? You say, how much activity did they get? And when did they sleep? So if you're doing childcare, you want to do this with the parents. For each child, have them do a log, especially if the child's having difficulty. And then you'll be able to see how much did they sleep at night and how much did they sleep during the day. There's an example of how to do that, but that'll help with your communication with each other too. Because what we want to do is figure out what might be getting in the way of this child's sleep. I'll share more on this in just a minute. It's that log really gave us insight to help us solve all the different sleep problems we were dealing with in the class we were teaching. So number 2, what you want to do is you want to measure and compare. So on the blog, I'm putting a link to an article, but let me tell you, kids need to get enough sleep. How do you know if they're getting enough sleep? There's 2 things. 1, you look at the log and you measure how much sleep they're getting. 2, you put in the log, how much activity are they getting? Because, for example, we had one little child, if he got too much activity, he would only sleep 7 or 8 hours at night. But on the weekend, when there was a little bit less activity and maybe mom only did 1 thing or 2 things that day, instead of being busy all day, he would sleep for 12 hours at night. So we need to get a feel for what we can even expect. So newborns need 14 to 17 hours. By the time they get into the toddler years, it's 12 to 15 hours a day. Can you believe that? So if your child's only getting 10 hours and they're a toddler, they might need to be getting more like 11, 12, 13, 14 hours. By the time they're in their preschool years, it goes down to about 10 to 13 hours a day. So if your child's barely sleeping 8 hours at night, not enough sleep. And this isn't just at night. This is combined with the day hours. That's why we do the log. If they sleep 2 hours at night, then that preschooler would be likely to need about 8 hours, 9 hours, depending on the child. It's all different depending on your child. That's why you need to really start to be a scientist and figure out what gets in the way. Does this click for you guys? Hey, Julie, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Anybody else want to say hello or let me know what you're interested in with sleep? I'm going to take notes and then address your concerns as we're going about the next weeks. So that's number 1. Fill out that log so you can be a scientist and figure out what that child needs. Number 2, measure and compare. Compared to what is expected of kids, is your child getting enough sleep or not based on your data? Number 3, this is one of the biggest. We need to figure out what the culprits are that's undermining sleep. So if that child is not going to bed at nap time or at bedtime is really on a deficit of sleep, then we need to figure out what's going on. So I'm also putting a list on the blog, but let me tell you some. One of them is if there's too much stimulation during the day. Have you ever had where you just go all day long and then you get where you try and go to sleep and it's like, you can't sleep? So if they get in a sleep deficit and they get kind of overstimulated, then they get stuck and they can't sleep. If before bedtime, even an hour to 2 hours before bedtime, they get too much physical activity, this stimulates the body that it's time to be up. It's time to be awake. So if you've been wrestling before bed, time to pull back on that. Also, screen time. Now, this is a big one. Did you know if you get over 60 minutes of screen time a day, it starts to interrupt your sleep? I know some kids fall asleep watching TV, but they will not have a restful night's sleep if they've had too much media in a day. Especially now with all the blue light from iPads and phones and other things, it really interrupts their sleep. So see, these are things you might have some control over. Did you know also that caffeine and sugar can get in the way of sleep? So we had one little guy at the end of his meal, some nights of the week, he would get to have these little fruit snacks, which were actually like sugar, right? And sometimes he didn't get the fruit snacks. Do you know it made a difference of 1 to 2 hours of sleep if he had that sugar after dinner or not? So if you have a child who's struggling with going to sleep, look at if they've had any kind of chocolate or sugar or something somewhere during the day and then measure. It's on the log. You'll be measuring it and putting it on the log, okay? There's also some other things you'll see on there, like is there relaxed connection time during the day? So if they haven't gotten any time to connect with their parents, they're likely to want to stay up, of course. They love the adults in their life more than anything in the world. So if they haven't gotten that connection time, they're more likely to fight bedtime. So can you build in some time? Even if you're doing childcare during the day, before nap time, can you connect at snack? Can you give lots of love and hugs and touch around circle time and those kinds of things? Because they'll be more likely to want to go to bed at nap time if they've gotten their, I need attention, I need love tank all filled up. Okay, so there's other ideas for that one on the blog, okay? The 4th thing, watch for cues. Okay, I'm going to have you guys measure for me. Are you ready? Are you guys ready for this? I'm going to ask you, and you're going to tell me if this child is tired or not tired. Are you ready? Here we go. Tired or not tired? Okay, you know that one. This child is definitely tired. All right. How about, though, this child? Is this child tired? Yes. Wired, right? So sometimes tired looks like the first one, but sometimes it's when you see them get all revved up and get that extra excited way of being, they could be overtired. So this is the trick is we want to recognize, okay, so here we go. This little baby, is saying, "Oh, talk to me. I'm ready to be awake. I'm ready to play." Yes. So during that time, get more stimulation. But then as you start to see the signs, this little guy is saying, maybe it's too much for me right now. So this is when it's too late. If you're right now starting the bedtime or nap time routine, now it is too late, meaning they're already a little overtired. So we want to watch for the smaller signs. Here's an example of a smaller sign. Do you see her face? Do you see her eyes? She's really saying, I'm overtired. I needed to go to bed about 15 minutes ago. So we have to watch for these little signs, because if we miss the little signs, guess what happens? Like I remember when I saw this sign, I definitely knew my child was getting tired. But do you know that this actually means they're overtired? So this is very important to be able to watch their cues, because if you don't catch it, here's the next step. This is also tired. That's also tired, but now it's way overtired. And guess what? You might not have guessed. This is also tired. They're less flexible. They're more likely to lock into power struggles when they're tired. So we're going to watch for those little signs. I'm going to put this on the blog so you can see it. You can see they're growing from I'm engaging, I'm really happy, to I'm starting to get too tired or a little tired, to I'm getting really, really tired, to I'm really overtired. And that's where we start seeing the misbehavior. So if you catch them early when they're still calm, when they're still just starting to get this look of being tired, and you start to do things to help them calm, that's when they're more likely to go to bed without the power struggles. Isn't that interesting? So that's what I want you to do this week. I want you to do that 5-step process to be able to help identify, is the child getting enough sleep? Are they ready for sleep? And how can we really start to measure the things that are impacting their sleep? Because some kids, sugar will really impact their sleep. Other kids, it won't. Some kids need so much stimulation in a day in order to be able to sleep at night. Other kids, if they get too much activity, they will not be able to sleep at night. So we have to be the scientists to figure out, what does this child need in order to succeed and be able to drift off into that slumber. Does this click for you guys? Have you noticed that kids give you these signs and then they might get too tired, too overstimulated? I'm thinking about in group settings where it's so impossible. If you're trying to watch 10 children at once, how do you catch these little signs? And then what do you do if one child needs sleep, but another child's not ready at all? So these are some of the big challenges, right? So next week, we're going to start to look at, what can we do then? We're awake, we're having fun, we're playing. Here's you're taking a great nap. I'm so excited about that. And here's the time in between. And that's where we're looking at strategies next week. So you've noticed they're tired. Now what are you going to do to get them to sleep? I hope you guys thought this was helpful today. If you're watching it later, go ahead and type in the box, what are some of your sleep challenges? When is it really difficult to get kids down? And what are some of the questions that you have coming up? So I am glad to be here. I know this will make a big difference. Keep your goggles on. Be looking for those signs that they're tired, and then get them some sleep. And then over time, look back. If you're a parent, at 8:15, I noticed the overtired signs. So now you're going to think, tomorrow night, I'm going to start the bedtime routine 15 minutes earlier. If it's nap time, maybe you need to push nap time back a little bit if it's going too late, because we don't want overtired kids, because that's where we have those behaviors, and that's where we get frustrated and go, wah, right? All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. It means so much to me. I'll have this video and all the links up to you before it's 2 o'clock today. So I'll put that blog on the Facebook post. So if you want to go ahead and alert other people in your life who you want to have them be able to really support kids through this difficult learning experience, they need to learn to calm down. They need to learn to fall asleep. Sometimes adults do too. So take care and have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you for joining me for Naptime Nuggets. If you like this video, subscribe, give it a like, a thumbs up, and join me next week for number 2, which will be on Monday. I have a big job I just got hired for on Tuesday, so I will be to you next week on Monday. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Over and out.